In our last video, we chose all the colors for the face, and we put them on our color layer. Above our color layer, but below our brush stroke layer, we will make a layer called shading. On our shading layer is where we will put our shading. At this point, I will hide my colors and turn on my brush strokes. We will use the brush strokes on this top outline as a guide to show us where to shade. I'm looking at my outline layer, my brush stroke layer, and I'm noticing that I have all of my undivided gaps. So the lines on the eyes are still overlapping. That is because I divided on my color layer, but I did not divide on my brush stroke layer. This is going to be a problem, so I'll select all my brush strokes and I'll delete them. I'll take everything that is on my color layer, hit Control C to copy it, and F to paste one in front. I'll take my red bead and drag it to brush strokes, and I'll hide color. Notice that on my brush stroke layer, which should just be the outline, I have color. I will enter isolation mode. I will select the black fill color. I know that I have black selected because up here it is selected. I will select the same fill color. Now all of my black lines have been selected. I will select the inverse, which will deselect the black and select all my colors, and I will delete, leaving me with my clean outline border, which I will lock, and I will go to my shading layer. That was done incorrectly, and I apologize that we had to do that cleanup process in the middle of this video. I will get my color, eye for the eyedropper, and grab the skin tone. This color here is the skin tone that my eyedropper grabbed. I'll hit B for my brush and click once to set my color. I will double click on my stroke, and I will pick a lighter shade for my highlights, and I'll give myself a color blob. I for my eyedropper, grab skin tone, B for my brush or select the brush, click once to set the color, double click, and then choose a slightly darker shade for my shaded areas. This color will be for shading. Let me grab this color, and this will be for the highlights. Let us begin our shading. First, I'll set my brush to 0.1. I like the size of that. Next, I will turn on my reference picture and hide my colors. I will use the photo, and I'll find the highlighted areas, and that's where I'll use my brush strokes for shade for highlights. I'll find the dark areas, and that's where I will use my brush strokes for shading. Be sure to follow the contours of the photo. So I'm looking at this area right here. My first highlight should travel along this cheek because that's where we see the highlighted area. I will continue to use that shape of the character's face and fill in with brush strokes these highlighted areas. Every once in a while, it's very important to turn on your colors, zoom out a bit, and see exactly what the work that you're doing is accomplishing. So we're beginning to see a little bit of highlighting there, which is exactly what we wanted to see. We have a bit of highlights here, so I think that I will define that area using, again, brush strokes. We have a bit of a highlight here on the nose, so I will highlight that. I'll try to fill in a few more of these highlighted areas. We also have a bit of highlighting on the right-hand side of the face as well, so I will continue with my highlighting on the side of the face. Overlapping my brush strokes very closely where we have very light areas, and giving a little bit of space in between the brush strokes to show areas that are a little bit less highlighted. Every once in a while, cleaning up some edges. And it also looks like we have a few brief highlights in here, as well as maybe some right in this area. I'll turn on my colors and back out, and we can begin to see the 3-dimension of the face being drawn out through this shading. Next, I will switch to my darker color, set my brush to 0.1, and begin to define some of the darker areas in this face. A bit in here, a bit on the side of the nose, going into the eye socket, there's some shading. Notice that I'm using the top outline to kind of help me define where different dark areas are and where different light areas are, and I don't want to go into some of my closed areas like the brows, etc. A little bit of darkness under the eye, as well as in this area here. Turning this on, turning my reference picture off and zooming out, we're beginning to see the 3-dimensionality of the face come out by using shading. You'll continue to do this until you complete all of the shading in the face, as well as putting highlights in the hair. Be sure to put highlights on the lips as well. I would define a few lighter shades of pink, as well as some darker shades of magenta to make the lips kind of pop as well.